All right, everybody, shalom, and welcome to the Yishai Fleischer Show, broadcasting live from a cold and wintry Israel, Judea. Winter has finally arrived. Our prayers for rain have finally been heard, and so winter has hit Israel, and that means that it's gray and it's cold, and it's different because we had like a summer of more than a half a year, and now finally it's cold. And with that, we ask Hashem, we ask God to hear the rest of our prayers, to be victorious in war, to see our captives return to us, to see the world respect and love Israel for what it is, which is a light unto the nations. There's a lot to pray for. There's a lot to pray for sure. And today we have to pray also for the soul of a murdered rabbi, Rabbi SV Kogan, who was murdered. We'll talk about that. And also for this upside down world where we have the ICC, the International Criminal Court, criminalizing, or at least issuing warrants for Prime Minister Netanyahu and the former Defense Minister Gallant. And so we have a lot of things that we have to pray for, and we have a lot of things that we need to be strong about. When I think about strength, I think about the one and only Malka Fleischer. And so therefore, I add to the stage the one and only Malka Fleischer. Malka, shalom and welcome.
Hi, Yishai. Thanks for having me back on the show.
All right. Well, thank you for being on. And Malka, before we go into some of the intense news out there, I think first thing we have to do is share with people the Sabbath Shabbat experience that we just had in the beautiful town of Hebron. It was just an intimate Shabbos, me, you, and 30,000 other people that came together to pray and to hear the story of the purchase of the tomb of the patriarchs and matriarchs by Abraham to bury his beloved wife, Sarah. And here's a little bit, Malka, of what it looked like when we were there. All right. So there's people dancing in Hebron Friday night. And it was a whole Sabbath. It's what I call Woodstock meets the Bible. And what's your thoughts on Shabbat Chayei Sarah in Hebron?
Well, it was a beautiful Shabbat. As I don't have to tell you, Yishai, that it was a big decision between the government and the army and local people as to whether the annual celebration of the purchase of Hebron would happen in terms of this big gathering that you see here. It's a major undertaking. All kinds of infrastructure has to be prepared, and more than that, and especially these days, lots of security needs to be prepared. So it was a big question: can we hold this event this year in light of the war environment and the security concerns? And ultimately, all these decision makers decided that this festival is very important to the Jewish people and that it has to go on. Last year, it was canceled. Of course, we continue to read the Torah portion of the week, but the big happening where everybody makes a big pilgrimage to Hebron to celebrate with their grandmother, Sarah, as she is remembered in the Torah portion, and as we remember that Abraham purchased the land for her burial plot, and for the burial plot that would basically be the root of the Jewish people in the land of Israel until this very day. The celebration was canceled last year, but this year it goes on. And there were lots of great soldiers. Thankfully, there weren't any major security issues. And it was a really beautiful Shabbat. Even the weather was amazing, and there were all kinds of people there, and people walked in also from Kiryat Arba, the adjacent city, and it was a beautiful time, and I'm very grateful that we were a part of it.
Okay, Malka. So speaking of Sarah, I found a video from a different Sarah in a different gathering of people with Sarah. This happened this week at Sarah Lawrence College. Okay. Gathering with Sarah. Check out this gathering.
Divest. We will not stop. We will not rest. It's closed. Divest. We will not stop. We will not rest. It's closed. Divest. We will not stop. We will not rest. It's closed. Divest. We will not stop. We will not rest. It's closed. Divest. We will not stop. We will not rest. It's closed.
Okay, so this is an effort to get Sarah Lawrence College to divest from Israel, and there's these, there's that name Sarah, and here's these young ladies, and they want to, instead of connect, which is what we were doing in Hebron, the word Hebron itself means connection, they were actually calling to disconnect from Israel. And I wouldn't be surprised if there were some Jewish girls amongst those. And what do you think about that tension between what we experienced in Hebron and what these gals at Sarah Lawrence were doing on the floor there?
I don't know if you can call it a tension, Yishai. To me, it feels like the people who are connected versus the people who are not connected. So I don't know if there's a tension between those two groups of people. These are two different realities. Here in the land of Israel, we live with the reality of a very organic relationship with the forefathers, being that we can come and see their resting place personally, that we are walking in the same places that they walked on a regular basis. That it's not a hard thing to do, meaning to say you get in your car and you're driving down the roads and the pathways that the ancestors went on. So the relationship is very organic. Sarah Lawrence kids are masked up in black hoodies in front of some pretty fireplace on some campus, in some country far away, and they read, Haaretz, and they read MSNBC or Al Jazeera or whatever it is that they're reading, and their experience has nothing to do with our experience. They've already divested. They've already divested from the thing. The question is, like, does the money go or whatever? But they're already out.
Yeah, but there is a battle out there for connect or disconnect. That's really. Are you going to connect to the narrative? Are you going to connect to your Jewish history? Are you going to connect to Israel and see the light that comes out of Israel, or are you going to try to disconnect? And later on the show today, we're going to talk a lot about the ICC issuing warrants against Israel. Their effort is to disconnect Israel from the international community. And also Iran is trying to terrorize our people. And we'll talk about that in just a second. Still on the topic of Shabbat Chaye Sarah in Hebron, and what the experience that we had and the tension between connection and disconnection. There was, right before the Shabbat, a very sad story of a Israeli researcher who was very well known in our circles, and I knew him as well. His name was Jabo Ehrlich, Zev Jabo Ehrlich. His nickname was Jabo. And he was a researcher and a famous land of Israel knower. A scholar. Now, the army knows about him and used him to make sure that places that they were visiting and coming to would be marked, would be studied, would be understood. And he was in Lebanon, 71-year-old, in full uniform and armament. He had his personal weapon with him, and yet he was shot and killed by Hezbollah. And at his funeral, there was sadness, definitely, but there was also a kind of realization that he went in the honorable way that he deserved in a fight in the land of Israel. I want to show a little video of Zev Ehrlich, this famous tour guide and researcher, as he's explaining about a holy site in Chalchul next to Hebron. Check this out.
מה שאנחנו אומרים בית עומר, מצפון לחלחול, מדרום לצומת הגוש. יש כאן מקם מבני מקודש מוסלמי שנקרא נבי מטה. הסיפור הוא, ואני לא חותם אם זה אמת או לא, הסיפור הוא
Okay, so he's explaining about this kind of special holy site. I think it's underneath a mosque in Chalchul, and he's underneath there. The army's with him, and he's coming as a scholar to talk about this place, and he's about to tell us the story of this site. But the point is, here's a scholar. He was fearless. He loved the land of Israel. He was killed. A lot of people that are friends of mine knew him well. And at the same time, the sense of heroism and the sense of the land of Israel is such that it's tragic, his loss, and yet he felt like a hero. And there's something very special about that. So that's Zev.
Right. It's one of those things where we're sad for us because a real encyclopedia of the land of Israel just disappeared. And because a beautiful person was extinguished. And that is a tragedy. But for him, it's kind of cool, right? For him, I mean, and we want to live ad 120, we want to live until 120. And again, we certainly do not celebrate that he passed at all. But it's kind of nice for him, right? It's kind of nice for him in his life story that is how he left the world. Still fighting for the Jewish people with his knowledge, fighting for the land of Israel with all of his breadth of experience, and his contribution will be sorely missed, but everyone's very proud of him.
Another man who was murdered is Rabbi SV Kogan. His body went missing on Thursday in Dubai. Finally, his body was located by intelligence and security authorities in the UAE. The Israeli delegation in Abu Dhabi has been in constant communication with Kogan's family. There's also some complaints about how Dubai and Abu Dhabi handled this situation. Kogan's car even got a speeding ticket on its way to Oman. Nothing was done about it. And there's some frustration about how UAE police and security services did. And it's definitely a very sore point for the UAE, which prides itself on security and certainly prides itself on defending Jews and other peoples in their land. Let's take a look at a short report that was prepared at I-24 about the murder of the Chabad Rabbi, Rabbi SV Kogan.
Emirates, ranked one of the safest countries in the world in 2024, is now grappling with the shocking murder of Rabbi SV Kogan. The rabbi, a dual Israeli-Moldovan citizen, went missing for days before his body was discovered by Emirati authorities. Kogan was an emissary to Abu Dhabi's Chabad chapter, arriving in the UAE following the normalization of ties between Israel and the Gulf nation in 2020. He also ran a kosher grocery store in Dubai. Details of the murder remain unclear, but Israeli security sources suggest Kogan was being tracked by Iranian intelligence. Israel has condemned his murder as a, quote, despicable anti-Semitic act of terror, and vowed to bring the perpetrators to justice.
I wish to express deep shock on my behalf, on behalf of all the cabinet members, on behalf of the citizens of Israel, and on behalf of the entire Jewish people, over the abduction and murder of SV Kogan. Of blessed memory, may God avenge his blood. I greatly appreciate the cooperation with the United Arab Emirates in investigating this murder. We will strengthen our ties, particularly in the face of attempts by the axis of evil to harm our peaceful relations.
Kogan's death has also brought back painful memories for his family. He was related to Rabbi Gavriel Holtzberg, who was killed alongside his wife in the 2008 Mumbai Chabad House terror attack. The UAE confirmed on Saturday the rabbi had been missing since Thursday, but refrained from mentioning Kogan's Israeli citizenship, instead identifying him as Moldovan. The UAE has maintained its ties with Israel throughout the war against Hamas in Gaza and remains a key partner under the Abraham Accords. But Rabbi Kogan's murder reminds of the ongoing risks for Israelis and Jews living abroad, even in countries with normalized relations. In response to the killing, Israel has reiterated a level 3 travel warning for the UAE, advising against non-essential travel.
All right, so thank you, I-24, for that. Malka, being a Chabad rabbi out there is really representing the Jewish people very overtly in their dress, in their look, in everything that they do. Another Chabad rabbi struck down. In a sense, it's a strike against Jews, but it's also a strike against Israel. It's a strike also against normalization with the UAE. It's Iran's classic type action where they attack Jews abroad, like they did in the Amiyah bombing in Buenos Aires. And they are back to their old tricks. If they can't shoot rockets at Israel, they're going to pick out prominent Israelis and Jews. Rabbi Kogan was also an Israeli soldier. I don't think the report said that. I don't think they mentioned it, but he was in the Givati Brigade. And so, we're back to that time where Jews are being hunted. We had, recently we had the whole story in Amsterdam. Now UAE. The world doesn't feel so safe for Jews. What do you think?
Yeah, the world doesn't feel so safe for Jews right now. And this is only further evidence which helps us with a very important piece of clarity, Yishai, which is that the Iranian mullahs are an enemy of peace. This act of murdering a Jewish person way far away in another country, a person who's not engaged in any kind of warfare, who is living in the UAE in order to provide Jewish and kosher services there, who has been accepted by the government of the UAE as a chaplain there for the Jews. And the Iranians come in and kidnap this guy and murder him. Here in Israel, we're dealing with Iran and their payments to Hamas. In Lebanon, they're dealing with Iran and their payments to Hezbollah. Now in the UAE, they're dealing with Iran and their, mercenaries. So it is time for Israel to do the job that the world has refused to do for these many decades, which is to liberate Israel, liberate Gaza, liberate Lebanon, liberate Iran, and it seems to provide peace throughout the Middle East, including in places like the UAE. And I hope that this will give Israel even more impetus, even more desire to go after the head of the snake and to take it down. It will be a blessing to this entire region, certainly to the Jews, but it will be a blessing to this entire region and to the whole world.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. Last week's show, we called it Liberation Nation. And that was my new slogan for Israel, Liberation Nation. So I agree with you 100%. And I want to show you some videos to back up exactly what you're talking about. I have 2 videos. Before I do, I just want to remind folks that you can make a super chat. Your chats are important, but your super chats are super. So join us through super chats, and I'll be so happy to read your comments on this live show right now, which is going out to the whole world through the magic of this technology. So let's super chat it up, and we have a lot to talk about. So Malka, you're talking about the head of the snake. You're talking about Iran and its many proxies. Check out northern Israel today in the beautiful coastal city of Nahariya. This is what it looked like. Wait, did you see that? One second. I don't think that video played right. Look at this. Boom. That's an apartment building. It's an apartment building in Nahariya. Okay, so we are under attack from North Israel. And
there was a similar thing in Haifa.
That's right, and even in Tel Aviv. So we are really dealing with a war. I like to also share some criticism of our beloved Israel as well, which is this war has got to be prosecuted so much harder. We got to be wiping those guys out of the picture, away.
Right.
All those Hezbollah rocketeers. There shall be no people that are able to rocket Israel, and no rockets. And there's no deals to make with these people. You got to get rid of them. They want to destroy Israel, and we got to get rid of them. Bookmail says, don't they have Iron Dome? Iron Dome is not a panacea. Iron Dome will not catch every missile. Iron Dome is very expensive. At the end, we have to have a situation where Iron Dome is not needed because there are no more rockets to shoot against us. However, Malka, Israel is not only being struck, it is also striking. And here's a very striking video, Malka, from Al Farouk Mosque in central Gaza. Check out this wild video, Malka. You don't see this. You don't see this very often.
Okay, let's see it.
Okay, here we go. Now, did you hear that at the end? There's clapping and whistling, positive whistling. Wait, the beginning was a little cut off. Let's see that again. Boom!
Wow.
Mosque gets shot down. Why is this mosque shot? Because the reason it's shot is because this mosque is housing terrorism, and that's why it's attacked specifically.
Yeah, I heard that. That was clapping.
There's clapping, and people are whistling, clapping. Why do you think that is? Probably because just like last week I showed, there's plenty of videos of Arabs fleeing Gaza saying Hamas has destroyed our life, and probably that mosque housed some of those terrorists. And so the people there are not like, oh no, Israel struck a mosque. People there, oh, Israel is striking at our suppressors, at our oppressors. And so they're cheering for that. You heard it here. So the Sarah Lawrence folks are trying to detach themselves from Israel, and the Gazans are cheering when a mosque in Gaza is destroyed. So that
this is what we're talking about. This is what we're talking about when we talk about debilitating the mullahs in Iran. And I'm not talking about debilitating Iran, because Iran is also being held captive. There's a society there that does not want to be like bleeding out money in a global war against Jews, against Judaism, against also Western countries and Western values. They do not want their lifeblood being used like this. And so I really feel, this is just another indication, Yishai, that it is time to take the brave action. Not to say that Israel hasn't been brave. I mean, I think that, we have executed this war very well, and we have, thank Hashem, seen much success. But until we make it that the people who would ever think to do this stuff to us are completely cut off, erased, until we remove that threat, we cannot negotiate a quietness with them. It's not like you be quiet and we'll be quiet. We'll all be quiet and coexist as neighbors. It's not going to work. It's over now. It's time for us to take away the ability of anyone to do this to us or to anyone else in this region.
Malka, you and I, we fight the physical battle by being here in the land of Israel, by sending our kids to school. I go to reserve duty, but we also we carry weapons to defend ourselves in our community. But we also fight the narrative war, which is the war of lies that are out there spreading so far and wide. Really, you got to hand it to the other side. They're good. Here's Congressman Richie Torres from New York talking about the narrative war in his way. Let's take a look at that.
A reality where evil has become good and wrong has become right, and Israeli self-defense has become aggression, and anti-Semitic terrorism has become resistance. And in that world of lies and blood libels and false narratives, the most important contribution that I can make as a member of Congress is not only my vote in the halls of Congress, but my voice in the public square. The answer to the question of why I choose to speak out lies in Torah. There's a passage in Torah that appears as an inscription in the Liberty Bell. It reads, "Proclaim liberty throughout all lands unto all inhabitants." The deeper message is that none of us is free until all of us are free. I see my freedom as a black Latino from the Bronx as inextricably bound to the freedom of the Jewish people. I see the security of my own nation and home, the United States of America, as inextricably bound to the security of the Jewish homeland. And I'm here to affirm that I am pro-Israel, not despite my progressive values, but because of my progressive values. It is progressive to defend Israel's right to defend itself. It is progressive to demand the release of the hostages who must be brought home.
All right, that was Congressman Richie Torres, and I think that he talked about really being brave in the public square, getting out those ideas out there. I like what he said, that being progressive is defending Israel's rights. The only thing I didn't like is that last part, which is like to demand that they get released. You don't demand from terrorists that they release their hostages. You destroy those terrorists and make sure that they don't have.
That's the thing you're supposed to say, right? You're supposed to say, you acknowledge the wrongdoing of the other side and tell them to undo their wrongdoing. And that's like the thing that you say, and you're supposed to say it. But we all know that Hamas is not going to do that. And every time we hear anything about a negotiation for peace, we know that they're just not peace, excuse me, a negotiation for cessation of war. Every time we hear anything about a negotiation for the cessation of war, then we know that Hamas is just messing with us to get the story into the headlines so that people will be like, oh, now are we going to have a deal to get the hostages back? Oh, no, not again. And tiring us out, raising hopes and lowering them again. So there are people like you and me, Shai, who, of course, we highly value the lives of the hostages and desire very deeply that the IDF will go and find them and bring them back, right? We all want that. We all want to bring them home. But we don't think that we can bring them home through any kind of negotiation with the kind of monsters who would have taken them in the first place. And that it's not going to happen. It's not the way to go on every level.
Malka, we have to be bold right now. It's a time of boldness. And I think that the Trump election victory is also a signal to the world that it's time to be bold. And now President-elect Donald Trump announced on Shabbat his appointment of Dr. Sebastian Gorka, who was a former senior Trump administration official, host of the America First podcast. I just wanted to show you just 1 second of the kind of attitude that the kind of zeitgeist that is entering the world stage.
You talk about genocide in Gaza. And is that the same with all of the Trump?
Because there isn't any genocide in Gaza. There is no such thing as Palestine. Do you know what the etymology of the word Palestinian is? It was a name invented by the Roman Empire.
Yeah, the problem is it's impartial interlocutor. You know that is not shared by the rest of the world. The rest of the world disagrees with you, so you're going to be you're going to be a game.
I'm glad you talk for the rest of the world. I'm glad you talk for the rest of the world. You mentioned the word hubris.
It's the United Nations General Assembly resolution.
My God! Oh, the United Nations that sends people in blue helmets to rape little girls in Africa. Why did I not listen to the United Nations? What a clown show, really? As far as I'm concerned, the United Nations could be pushed into the Hudson, okay? What have they done to solve anything of late except create child prostitution rackets in Africa?
Just finally, tell me, what do you think of the UN pick? What do you think of the US?
You really represent the world. The world has this opinion. Who are you to say you represent
We'll have to get you on again to talk more about the cabinet positions.
Who are you? Really? Unbelievable.
Okay, Malka, great stuff.
Drop. That guy's out.
That
was like a legendary speech. Congratulations. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't say what his position was going to be. Deputy Assistant to the President and Senior Director of Counterterrorism.
Wow.
There's a guy who's identifying.
That is a guy who's ready to work on some terrorism problems.
Some anti-terrorism, absolutely.
Yeah.
Malka Fleischer, thank you so much for being with us. We covered everything from Chaya Sarah to Sarah Lawrence, from the Al Farouk Mosque to Richie Torres. Oh, Richie Torres. I think I'm going to rename him Richie Torah. Okay, that's what I'm going to call him. He's
nice.
Calling the Torah. Okay,
yeah.
And of course, Sebastian Gorka to the murder of Rabbi SV Kogan and the continued fight against jihadist terrorism around the world. So thank you very much, Malka, for being with us, and keep broadcasting that strength to the world. Toda rabba.
Thank you.
All right. So we did hear about the awful murder of Rabbi Tzvi Kogan, Chabad Rabbi in the UAE. Initial reports is that he was abducted by Iranian operatives who fled afterwards to Turkey, but these are just initial reports. And I thought to myself, if a Chabad rabbi is going to be murdered today, then it's time to strengthen the name, strengthen the message of Chabad rabbis around the world. And one Chabad rabbi is my good friend, Rabbi Eliyahu Raskin, who joins us today. Rabbi Raskin, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me, Yishai. I'm very excited to be here.
And so today, I've been planning to have you on the show for a while, but then today we found out about this murder, and I thought to myself, that's really exactly the time to strengthen the consciousness of Jewish emissary work throughout the world, especially Chabad work. And you have a lot of work that you do, including being on the advisory board of St. Francis College and a chaplain there, and receiving an honorary doctorate from St. Francis College. That's cool. I'm going to call you Dr. Rabbi.
Sure.
But today we want to talk about a project that you're running, which I think is one of the most exciting projects since when I heard about it, which is an online conversion academy called JewishConversionAcademy.com. And I want to show folks the website. So let me just bring that up right now. All right. Let me see if I have it the way I want it. There you go. So that's JewishConversionAcademy.com, which is, I really think, one of the first serious and recognized conversion academies that you could do from anywhere around the world on online classes. This is a big deal. There's a lot of people who turn to me who want information about how to become Jewish. Now, what am I supposed to say? First thing, let me ask you, Rabbi Askin. First thing, like somebody comes to me and says, I want to become a Jew. What am I supposed to say to them?
Well, the classic approach that everyone knows is when someone says, I want to be Jewish, you say, oh, no, don't be Jewish. It's horrible to be Jewish. They hate us. They want to kill us. Anti-Semitism, which is the truth.
I don't know if the word horrible is right, but it's hard.
Hard, very hard.
Right.
But the interesting thing is, if you look at the Shulchan Aruch, it actually says two things. She's telling them the hard things, and she's telling them some of the good things. Right? There is a lot of beauty to it, and but we try to. I saw an unbelievable thing by Rabbi Yonason Eibschutz. He wrote a beautiful question. He said, why is it that God allowed people who aren't Jewish to convert? If God created everyone in his image and everyone's perfect, why did he even allow the idea of conversion? I thought it was a very innovative question. And he answers as follows. He said, God gave the ability for all people to grow and free choice. So even though we're all created perfect, and this relates to Jews and non-Jews, right? As Jews, we have to work harder to get better and more spiritual. And he gives the opportunity for non-Jews as well to be able to walk this path if they feel that they must do it, and it's something that's deep within their soul. So first we say,
are all non-Jews, according to Judaism?
Sure.
Are all Jews supposed to become Jewish?
Are all Jews?
Are all non-Jews supposed to become Jewish according to Judaism?
Not at all. No, we believe that they're all perfect. Adam, the first man, the name means Adam el-Elyon, created in the image of God. Every person has created the image of God, and me and you have spoke about this, about the 7 Noahide laws, or the people that follow the Abrahamic religions. And everybody has a mission in this world. We don't think you need to be Jewish to be great. We don't think you need to be Jewish to be impactful in the world and to fulfill your mission that you were created for.
And to be godly. You don't need to be Jewish to be godly, to be connected to God, right?
For sure. We believe, not only that, that's why
people who watch my show want to be connected to God. They're Jewish, they're not Jewish, they're all over the world. They want to be connected to God. That's a fact. People want that.
Yeah.
They want to walk in the path of God, the path of Abraham. What's the pathway that they're supposed to follow?
So the first thing we tell everybody is the 7 laws of Noah. God gave Noah 7 laws for all the nations of the world. Do not kill, do not steal, do not commit adultery, follow the law of the land, things like that. Don't torture animals. And when we follow these things, this gives us godly steps, and it helps us become godly people. It says when the Mashiach is going to come, the final days, anyone that follows all these things, they will also come back. They will also be part of the reincarnation of all people. So yeah, 100%. I always say conversion is the last resort. It's the last resort.
By the way, I have here a card that a Chabad organization gives out. Do you see this card? Hold on, let it focus. All right, it's a little bit backwards, but this card, the 7 universal laws, I love the way it's written. Here's the 7 universal laws. Belief in one God, to know that God is one and only creator and master of the universe. Respect God, respect the creator who granted life in the world in the world in which we live. Respect life. Killing a soul is considered killing an entire world. Number 4, respect human property. God has granted a person ownership over his and her possessions. Respect that. Respect marriage. God created man and woman who are in need of each other in order to reach completeness. Beautiful. I love the way it's phrased, not in the negative, but in the positive. Respect marriage. Number 6, respect animals. God created living creatures. We must respect their existence. Don't eat a living creature. Wow. And number 7, a court system. Courts of justice should be established in every jurisdiction or region. Okay, so that's the basic laws of all mankind. But now a person reaches a conclusion that they want to take it one step higher, that they want to be part of the Jewish people. They're trying to research this. They don't know what to do. They want it to be recognized by Israel, which is the Jewish state. They find you online. They find JewishConversionAcademy.com. Okay, what is the process? What are they going to have to do to really change and be reborn as a Jew? How does that happen?
Sure. So the first thing is they're going to send me an email, and they're going to say, hey, Rabbi, this is something I really want to do. And we start a conversation. The first thing I want to see is that we don't want to push anybody into anything. We want to help them grow as people. So the first thing I'm like, let's advise, let's talk, we have a conversation. After a conversation, if I see someone is really serious and this is something that they can't live without, this is according to the Zohar, right? It says that a non-Jew who has to convert is really a Jewish soul in just a non-Jewish body. This is something that's not a choice for them. They have to do it, right?
Mm-hmm. That's very interesting.
Yeah, when they tell me I have to do it, I'm like, when they say that to me, that's when I know, that's the key, right? They have to do it. And then we say, okay, so where do you live? You have to be walking distance to a shul, right? They have to be able to be part of the community. Judaism
shul is a Jewish house of worship, right? An Orthodox synagogue.
They need to have a community. We're a very community-based religion. And when they have kind of the right ecosystem that could support what they want, right? So the most important thing, people tell me, when it's time to convert, where do I have to be in my religiousness? And I always say, you need to be in an environment and a level that you can continue what you're starting. We want to make sure that you're set up for success. We don't want you to convert because you're you grow a beard, you put a black hat on, you're doing it, and then we drop you like a hot potato. We want to make sure that you're ready for success. So we make sure you have a good community. There's a good rabbi there who could help guide you, and then we start you in our program, which is teaching classes, all the basics of Judaism, practice, which is some of the most important things. And that's kind of the process that we get people started. And I tell them, I say, actually, you could start the program and you could drop it. Just start learning, start researching, learn, see where you want to get to. And after 3 months, we'll sit down again, and then we reassess and try to get them to the goal they want to get to.
There's a lot of people out there that are biblically based, and they're searching. The United States, that I know better than other countries, I've seen such a spectrum of people out there. There's tons of real lovers of Israel, Bible believers that they're in the Christian spectrum somewhere, and that spectrum is a big old spectrum.
Yeah.
It is really not. You can't type make it into like 2-3 different types. There's many people in different spectrums, but they're yearning to get close to God. They want to do God's bidding. They want to walk in his path, and they're not sure because they read the Bible. They have the Jewish Bible that they've read. They also have the Christian texts, and they're not sure. They're just not sure. Are you going to help them? If they come to you and they're still, let's say, holding on to Christian beliefs, do you guide them with that in order to become a Jew, or do you just say, well, you're not ready yet? How does one deal with things when they're not sure, which is, I think, a lot of people that are trying to find the path of Hashem, of God?
So I get people who send me Instagram messages all the time saying,
how do they find you on Instagram?
Rabbi Eliyahu Raskin. People find me and and I get a lot of Christians messaging me I believe in the Old Testament, but I can't give up, the Trinity or something like that. Like I get this like all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And the first thing I tell them is 7 laws of Noah. 7 laws of Noah. One of those laws are you have to believe in one God and not many gods. And according to the Rambam, this is something that we see a lot in a lot of the Christian varieties, depending on which one you're part of. But the most important thing for them, it's interesting. People come to my Shabbos meal who have anti-Israel views, for example. I don't tell them they have to have good Israel views. I just involve them in Judaism, and automatically their minds start to change, and they like, you see, like a year later coming to my Shabbos meals, they're all like pro-Israel and this, and I never spoke a thing about Israel, and I feel it's the same thing about this. You just got to flood them with positive, healthy information. It's actually something my wife and I have been talking about, is we really want to start this like Noahide, Abrahamic, like a kind of like a new, I don't want to say a new website, but like start Zoom classes, Zoom courses for everybody, no matter what your background is, as long as you're speaking English, get them involved and start. And I want to have 2 tracks. I want to push people there before we convert them. And we spoke about this.
But the word in Hebrew, in biblical Hebrew, how do you say nations, is goy. The word goy is not a negative word, as has been misunderstood. The Jewish people themselves are called a holy goy.
Correct.
Right? I think your website should be called godlygoyim.com. Okay. Okay. There are so many. And by the way, this Shabbat we had in Hebron some very godly goyim who were with us and helped us keep the Sabbath properly. It was really very special. But I want to say that people indeed are on this kind of spectrum. They're searching. The thing, though, is that if let's say you leave Christianity or Islam, by the way, and you try to come to Judaism, but you fall somewhere in the middle, you don't always have that community. It's so important to have that community. You stated it right off the bat. Let's talk a little bit about that you need that envelope. Religion can't just, it's a relationship between me and God, between one and God. But it also needs to be a relationship with other people who share that value system, a society where children can be raised, where you can eat together and share thoughts and be inspired by one another. How do you create community? You're creating this global community, but when you walk out your door after you've been to your website, do you have community that's with you? Tell me about that problem.
So I'll tell you specifically about the conversion people that I work with, and then maybe we could try to fit that with people who are in that middle stage, that are trying to find godliness without other religions that are possibly dangerous, etc. Something that we started and we've been seeing is that people that have conversion backgrounds don't fit in everywhere the same like everyone else, like other Jews do, because of their shared experiences. They don't fit in. They're a little more unique sometimes. They have a lot of different background experiences. And we've seen in our class, for example, we opened up a WhatsApp chat. We have around like 50, 60 people in our WhatsApp chat. And there's like constant conversations that are going on outside of the class. People are discussing different things. We had one student that flew to England, and a few of our students in England, invited him to their house for Shabbos. And this is kind of this community growing.
Just pause for 1 second and get back right to this track. I just want to show you Richard's comment. I never knew about the Noah 7 commandments.
Wow.
Okay, so he was not familiar with that. So just showing you that even broadcasting here today really teaches people so many things that people don't know about the Abrahamic path. And here's another question. Excuse me. Here's another question. Are the classes online? Yes, the whole thing is online.
What we've done is something very unique. All of our classes are on Zoom, and in addition to that, I tell people, I say, I'm the rabbi consultant. Other rabbis, you go to them, they could either teach you or they could be the beis din or one of these other things. I help people learn the classes and connect with the right people in order to help them be converted, with the right beis din. Obviously, everything we do is
wait. Just explain those last points, please. You
Sure.
said some words in English
translate.
Hebrew here. What is it? The converted where?
Sure.
How, what are you saying?
This is the biggest challenge actually we work with when people come to us. When somebody wants to convert, most of the time they want to do it that they are accepted by all people. You know, they don't want their Judaism questioned by one shul or one neighborhood or one place. They want, when they convert their kids, nobody will have a question if their kids are Jewish. Everybody will agree with it. That's in general what we see. And so when they come to us, one of the important things that I do for them is connect them with a Jewish court that is recognized by the highest courts in Israel, which is the Rabbanut. That being said, when they convert with this court, they are 100% accepted by all Jews throughout the world. Because the Rabbanut in Israel is kind of like the overbearing court that most people look at and say, you know,
overarching.
Overbearing
Israelis, that is also true.
Overarching.
Yeah, that's right.
But yeah, they're kind of like.
So that's a big deal. You know, when I heard you tell me that originally, that your conversion program is recognized by the Israeli Rabbanut, that was like a game changer for me in terms of being able to recommend what you're doing. That to me is like a game changer.
You know,
it really is.
There are other websites that say that they're accepted by the Rabbanut, but they kind of like, you know, a lot of gray area. What we make sure is, so that's actually another thing that I tell people. Our website does not do the conversion. We partner with courts. And that way it can be done anywhere in the world. Because if you're in South Africa, or you're in Mexico,
here in South America, actually, Daniel writes, I'm a South American. Can I do classes here through a rabbi here? And will you help me? And will you help me get accepted?
So you can reach out to me. I could definitely help out with it. What I would tell you is in South America, to my understanding, there are no converting based-ins in general. And it has to do with a rabbinical decree that was made in like the 1916 or 1970. I don't remember the exact date, but someone once sent me an article on it. So it seems like the whole South America does not do conversions. Most people fly into America to do the actual conversion. So that seems.
So they can take the classes with you and how long is the process? A year, 2 years? What is it?
It's a good question. It really depends. It's very individualized. The classes are for everybody, but minimum a year, minimum. Right. And the idea is that we don't want someone to jump into Judaism and not experience a full cycle of Judaism. So we want them to try every holiday, every Shabbos, everything, and then at the end of a full year, at least that, they can kind of have a full picture of what it looks like. So minimum a year.
All right. First thing I just want to say before we get any further is that you're really part of an amazing family in Brooklyn Heights. Your father, Rabbi Aaron Raskin, is an author of many books. He has a wonderful synagogue in Brooklyn Heights, and a lot of people come to him. He has a tremendous energy, and he himself has been pioneering the Torah that goes out to the nations. And so you are a fruit from that tree, and that's awesome. And your brother, Rabbi Yankel Raskin, does great work at the colleges in Brooklyn and the law school, Brooklyn Law School. And,
I do that, but Yankel works with the teenagers, all the teens.
That's right. Okay, that's right. Sorry about that. That's right. He works with the teens, and you guys, are really growing the Jewish sense in a different part of Brooklyn. I've had the great pleasure of spending time with you and your synagogue, your brother and your father, and your mom, which is an awesome lady, and an amazing Shabbat table, which is one of the most beautiful Shabbat table that I was at. And it was a great Shabbat experience. And so it's really part of a great network that you're part of, which is also the rabbi that we see on the back right of you is the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and this rabbi that was just murdered in Dubai was also an emissary of this great Jewish leadership and Hasidic leadership. So thank you for all that you do. And again, I'm honored that we're talking about this today, a day where we found out that one of these emissaries was murdered for being Jewish. Let's see this comment. Shalom, Toda Rabba, Mr. Fleischer, for hosting these talks in a truthful, accepting, and welcoming conversation. Amen and amen from the beautiful and honorable work the rabbi is doing for the converts. Amen. So I want to ask you a fun question, which is, what is the hardest issue for potential converts to tackle? What's the one thing that they're like, no, like, what's the one thing that like their mind's like, oh, I don't know. That's what's a stumbling block? What's a bump on the road for conversion?
So first of all, I just wanted to continue what you were saying. My father is definitely a light unto the nations, and not only that, to myself. what I'm doing now is just an extension of my father's work. He was the one who really pioneered the whole conversion stuff. He's the one that pioneered all, the 7 laws of Noah, passing it to all the nations. Obviously, this all stems from the Rebbe, Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson, as I am a follower of his. My father's a follower of his. And he is our inspiration and our rock for everything we do in our Judaism. And the family, and of course, my mother, the Yiddish mama, who is who is the everything for us.
That's the one problem with conversion, is that you don't necessarily get that Yiddish mama. But okay,
it's actually a real thing. We could talk about it another time, but that's really. Oh, and the most important thing, I want to thank my wife Shandy for everything she does, because she is the most amazing person I know in my life.
All right, Baruch Hashem. Here's what Victor Benner says. He says circumcision. Is that the big one?
So it is. It's one of the biggest for men. But I will tell you that a lot of people don't know this. There's local anesthesia for circumcision for men.
Okay.
So a lot of people didn't know that, and I've seen that. And when I tell them that, they're like, "Oh, it's not so scary anymore." People don't know what to expect. I think the biggest bump for a lot of people.
Wait. You know what? We just glossed over that, but that is 100% true, though. I just want to make it clear, like, to become a Jewish person, you need to be circumcised if you're a male. That's a fact. And there were many Jews from the Soviet Union, even in my family, who were only circumcised later in life when they came out and they accepted their Jewish peoplehood. Notice, by the way, I don't say Jewish faith, but the Jewish peoplehood, because that's what it's about. It's about not joining a faith.
It's
about joining a people.
There's actually 2 reasons why we get circumcised. So it's interesting that you said that about the Jewish peoplehood. Specifically for converts, there's 2 reasons why they get circumcised. 1 is to be included in the peoplehood, like you said, of the Jewish people. And 2 is to accept the yoke of God. Those are the 2 reasons why they get circumcised. And why it's so interesting is because in Jewish law, it gets a little confusing, because you have to get circumcised before they convert you. So the question is, what status are you? Are you Jewish after you're circumcised and not converted? Or are you, and discusses, you're actually like in limbo. If you get circumcised and with the mindset of becoming Jewish, you are now not a non-Jew, and you are now not a Jew. It's unbelievable. It's very interesting.
Okay, all right, but we're not at that stage, are we?
Not that stage.
What is the other issue that really potential Jews get stuck with? What are the things that they say to you, like, I don't know, that sounds weird?
I'll tell you, the biggest challenge for them is sometimes not being accepted in other Jewish communities. That's what I've seen more than kosher and more than Shabbos, is not being accepted in other Jewish communities. That's the challenge.
And what do you say to them?
And sometimes I have to get on the phone and call up rabbis and speak to them, and I counsel them. And the truth is, it is a challenge. We can't force every Jew to love another Jew. Can't force it. It's a mitzvah, but you can't force them. And a lot of communities will not accept them. Majority will, but there are those that don't. And it's
Well, the Torah tells us that there's a mitzvah to love the convert, and I have many convert friends, and we go out of our way to make sure the converts feel good and feel part of it, because we have to accept them into our peoplehood, and they've gone through thick and thin to get into the peoplehood. And I have one more thing that I have in my life about conversion, which is I am working on the beautification of the tomb of Ruth and Yishai, Ruth and Jesse in Hebron. And Ruth is a very famous convert. We have a lot of converts come there, and they kind of connect to the place. Ruth, as opposed to another famous convert, which was Jethro, the difference is that Jethro was not as concerned with connecting with the peoplehood, but Ruth was like, no. Your people are my people. Your God is my God. I know that I have to be part of the people of Israel if I'm really going to be a follower of the God of Israel. And from her came the Davidic monarchy. So it's a very important step to understand that you're not just joining a theological system, but you're also joining a peoplehood. And that peoplehood has a home, the land of Israel, and it's got a special way. I'm very excited for the people who join you. How many people have already gone through your program, if I may ask?
Sure. So I launched the program 8 months ago, live online before, and we've been doing it, not as an official program. And we right now have over almost 60 people in the program. And there's a lot of people we've converted over the last 2-3 years, not in the official program. But every month we're converting people. That's the answer. Every single month. And it's growing by leaps and bounds. It's something we didn't expect.
Well, I hope that also in the follow-up to this show that people will connect with you. It's very easy to find you, jewishconversionacademy.com. And again, we today honor the memory of Rabbi SV Kogan, who was murdered in Dubai, probably by Iranian terrorists who want to throw a rod in the relationship between UAE and Israel, the normalization of Israel in the region, and to sow fear about being Jewish, about the story of the Jewish people. But we will not let them. Avalon Jewish Rights, Star of David, and then the flag of Israel. And so there's a lot of people who give us strength. And I want to thank you, Rabbi Eliyahu Raskin, so much for joining us today. And keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Give us a blessing before you go.
I bless everybody that they should see the light, and what that light is: the light of Torah and Judaism and spirituality and godliness and love for humanity. It's so important. Love for each other.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for being with us, Rabbi Eliyahu Raskin. And I want folks to check out this amazing opportunity to learn more about it. About at least taking steps towards a more godly, a more spiritual life. So in this show, we balance so much between politics and religion and everything Israel, everything that's hard about Israel, everything that's fun about Israel. And our next guest is somebody who does a great job explaining Israel. Really, he does such a great job because of the way he speaks with calm and yet with passion. It's not easy to mix calm and passion, right? You got to be on the one hand calm. On the other hand, if you're totally calm and you're like an icy river, that doesn't do it either. His name is Jonathan Conricus. He is all over television. He's Swedish Israeli. He's sweet, but he's Swedish Israeli, which we'll see what that means. And he was the international spokesman for the IDF for many years. And today he's a senior fellow at the think tank, which is called Foundation for Defense of Democracies, based in DC. He is based in Israel, but he's always flying around. Jonathan Conricus joins us. Shalom, Jonathan.
Shalom, Ishai. Good evening.
Where am I catching you now? Can you tell me?
Actually, home in central Israel.
Very good. Okay, very good. Jonathan, tell me a little bit about where you've been in the last few weeks. You really helped defend Israel throughout the world, and I know you're always flying around. Last week we couldn't catch each other. Tell me about your travels and what people are asking, what people want to hear and understand.
Yeah, I've made it thank you for having me on, Ishai. It's a pleasure. I've seen your show, watched it on YouTube, and I think there's lots of interesting content in it, and I'm happy to be here. I would say that, I've been traveling all around North America and Europe. That's where I've been focusing. So Canada, US, UK, and other parts of Europe, reaching out to Jewish communities, reaching out to people who are interested in getting an update of, beyond the news of what's going on in Israel, meeting people of different faiths, by the way, not only Jewish people, but Christians. There are so many people around the world who are not represented in international or American media, who love Israel, who care about Israel, who are very fond of Israel and the Jewish people, and sometimes struggle to express that because many times their views are censored. So there's a lot of love for Israel that isn't usually reflected in international media. And I have the good fortune of meeting a lot of people through various beautiful organizations that ask me to come and speak. Last 2 weeks, I was in Canada, US, and the UK, speaking on behalf of various organizations, and hopefully reaching out to people and helping them understand the complexity of the situation and what they're not getting in the news.
Okay.
The topics, Ishai.
Yeah. What's really bugging people out there?
I mean, number one is hostages. That is really what is at I think, the top of the list of questions. It's a close call between hostages, what's going on, when are we going to see our 101 brothers and sisters home? And the second question is a lot about October 7. How did it happen, and how could the ever-powerful Israeli defense establishment have failed so badly and allowed Hamas to do what they did, the atrocities that they did on October 7? Those are the two most prominent questions. And then, since I come from the world of information warfare and speaking and public relations, people also want to share their opinion about how Israel is doing, or how poorly official Israel is doing when it comes to making its own case in international media. Some people refer to that as hasbara. I usually speak about public relations or public affairs or public diplomacy, and there's lots of discussions of that, but those are the three most important topics.
Okay, so just in a short answer, let's not talk. I'm not going to talk about the hostages or Israeli PR, although that's something you're definitely an expert in. But how do you answer the question about how did Israel get caught with its pants down and got attacked on a holy day in Israel? Our army seemingly did not catch this terrorist attack, which had been planned for a long time, and which was we were duped. We fell for it. And a lot of people were killed, murdered, and raped, and all the bad stuff. How do you answer that question?
Yeah, without being too graphic, I'd say that not only were our pants down, we were caught with our pants down, they weren't even in the same room. That's how bad the situation was. I think that it goes, there's still no official Israeli board of inquiry. It hasn't been investigated at the military level, at a sufficient level. This hasn't been presented to Israeli decision makers. And the Israeli government hasn't come clean yet on all of those years of Israeli policy towards Gaza. I would give you my personal point of view based on my insight into Israeli affairs and a lot of investigative journalistic reports that I've read. And I'd say the following. One, and the most important thing, is that we underestimated our enemy and we totally misinterpreted their strategic intentions. We actually stopped listening to what our enemies were saying. And when Hamas were saying loud and clear in Arabic that they want to annihilate the state of Israel and that they want to destroy and kill all the Jews, they weren't talking about the Gaza Strip. They were not talking about the Gaza peripheral area, the Gaza envelope. They're talking about all of Israel, which they refer to as Palestine. And we simply didn't listen. We didn't listen to what they were saying. We didn't heed the warning signs, which were there, and some parts of the Israeli defense establishment saw it and tried to sound the alarm bells. But those voices were stifled and told to be quiet. And we didn't watch the different signs that we saw of actually Hamas preparing to do what they did on October the 7th. And it all goes back to our misunderstanding of what we thought their intentions were and what we thought was what Hamas was about. Then on top of that, of course, we have to speak about the level, the availability of troops around the Gaza division. Most of the troops were on other assignments. There were no readily available reserve units. There were not enough helicopters ready to deploy at Air Force bases. And the general assessment was that, well, nothing's going to happen because we've built this wall underground defending us from tunnels. We have a strong and sturdy fence above ground, which we don't think that they're going to be able to cross. And we have the Iron Dome capable of shooting down the biggest and the baddest rockets that they can fire. So why worry? And I think this was the general sentiment in the Southern Command Gaza division.
And there was one more, which is that we have on record a chief of military intelligence saying, we think that Hamas is more into governance than into fighting Israel. They are deterred. They want to govern. It's not that they want peace or love Israel, but they want to stay in their place and in their lane and get the benefits of being legitimate governors of a chunk of land of Gaza. And we just don't expect there to be a war. So there was also what we call in Israel a conceptia, a conception of the strategic dangers that was not commensurate with the reality.
Yeah, you're correct. I agree. The paradigm of thought was that, yes, Hamas is the third. And as I said in the beginning, the really basic primal issue was that we misinterpreted their strategic intentions and we also underestimated their capacity. We didn't understand what they were doing. We told ourselves that what we were seeing wasn't actually what was happening. And we failed to take notice of the warning signs. And yes, Hamas, for at least 2 years, probably more than that, effectively misled Israeli decision makers, military and political, into thinking that Hamas was into the business of governing Gaza, getting work permits for Palestinian workers to work in Israel, and getting Qatari money with Israeli authorization into the Gaza Strip. And as if that was the most important thing, but apparently it wasn't. And Hamas, for all of those years, was very busy building military infrastructure, preparing its troops, preparing its murderers to come across into Israel, digging tunnels, hoarding weapons that they all were able to smuggle in through Egypt, which the entire Israeli defense establishment knew about, Israeli military and Israeli government, including the prime minister and many various ministers of defense. We all knew that these tunnels were open and nothing was done about it when it comes to Egypt. So there are so many questions that are being asked by people around the world who care, who look up and ask, well, how could this have happened? You know, we trusted the IDF, we trusted the Israeli defense establishment after having such a stellar record of defending against various enemies. How could this have happened? And I think that's the very big issue that Israel will have to analyze and do lots of soul searching, military and government, hopefully. And I think we owe it. We owe it to the people who were murdered, the people who were butchered, and to the general loss of security and a sense of security amongst Israelis. We owe it to them to be better and to make sure that we learn from what happened. And, you know, not so much about blame and not so much about political processes, but just that we just learn from it at the military level and at the political level, never to be fooled again and never to let our guard down and always listen to what our enemies are saying that their intentions are. And this is very relevant today. You look at the Iranians today, the Iranian regime, you only have to listen carefully at what they're saying and what they're planning to do. And the issue here with Iran is that their outspoken goal is to annihilate the state of Israel. And it's not just talk, it's not just bluster. This is an official program of the Iranian regime. They're counting down from the year 2040. That's the target date that they're aiming for. And I think that they're very serious in their endeavors. And I wouldn't want us to repeat the mistakes that we did with misinterpreting Hamas's lethal intentions or genocidal intentions against Israel and doing the same thing with Iran. And I think this is now where we are. A year and a month after the war started, after Hamas attacked Israel, and after the rest of the Iranian proxies tried to attack Israel and did so, what we now are, the crossroads that we are at now, is to understand that this is the future of the conflict and this is really the source of our insecurity, and that it is upon us now to change our strategy to deal with it better.
Jonathan, that was a great answer. And I think the greatness of that answer is that you also showed Israeli vulnerability and without covering it up. There was a failure. It cost lives. And I think when you talk like that, a lot of times audiences can relate to it much better. Instead of a kind of bluster, a kind of bravado, a kind of hubris, you know, we know exactly what's going on. It's like, no, we failed and the other side did very well. But here's the follow-up question to that. The question is going to be at the end of my little words is going to be, how are we really doing? On the one hand, Israel's fought a very strong war and has showed a lot of people that Israel is never leaving, knows how to push back, knows how to kill terrorists, knows how to not crumple up and go away and become chaff and blow in the wind. We're standing strong against our bullies. That's for sure. And a lot of people recognize that. I think a lot of people in America recognize that. There's a pride. There's a Jewish pride. I've seen a lot of people tell me that they're prouder now to wear their kippah or whatever outward Jewish sign that they have than before, because they're proud of the IDF. They're proud of being part of it. And there's more of an internal sense, Israeli sense of cohesion. We're with our soldiers, and Israel's back in the fight. And Israeli troops are now, battle tested, battle experienced. There's a strength. But on the other hand, if you're a bad guy, if you hate Israel, you could say to yourself, look, Israel was struck very hard. They have a lot of internal divisions. They've lost a lot of land because their communities around the Gaza periphery have been destroyed and not really rebuilt yet. And so too in the north of Israel, normative communities like Kiryat Shmona are empty. Haifa's under attack. The rockets that right under their noses, we acquired and stockpiled are now firing. Israel's economy is practically shut down in terms of, look, there's barely airplanes flying except for El Al and a few others. Israel's practically an island now that you can't get to, or if you pay an El Al ticket, it's exorbitant prices. And Israel is not in great shape, actually, and we're winning. And then they'll turn to a latest video from Al Jazeera called Israelism, which blames Israel for everything and has 700,000 views in 4 weeks. And they're like, look, we're winning the propaganda narrative war as well. So I'm turning to you and asking, if you were to tell us the temperature, if you was to tell us the health of the state of Israel internationally, but first in terms of its battle and also in terms of its international standing, how's our standing doing? What's the credit rating that you would give us?
Yeah, so that will take a few minutes to answer, and I'll break it down into different components. Let's start with Tachlis, reality on the ground first. Even though in this age that we live in, sometimes spins and virtual reality are more important than the actual reality on the ground, but I think we should start with the battlefield. So the battlefield, when you look at Gaza, I would say that Hamas is down, not out yet, but very much down. Most of its military capacities have been eliminated by Israel. They are not an active fighting force. They do not have the ability to threaten Israeli civilians, and they have extremely limited military capacity left to fight. In a few pockets, Sajaiya and Jabalia, maybe a little bit also in the central part of Khan Yunis. Other than that, and except for the fact that they're still holding on to 101 Israeli hostages, they are not in great shape, and the Gaza Strip is in horrible shape. As a result of what Hamas did and the ensuing fighting. Unfortunately, Hamas has not been defeated yet because Israel has not been able to, and this is mostly at the political level, to present an alternate political system that will govern the Gaza Strip.
Right.
And coming short of doing it ourselves, as in having Israeli troops occupying the Gaza Strip, and I'm using the dreaded O word, which many people around the world are kind of a bit cagey about, but to actually occupy the Gaza Strip and administer food and medical provisions and actually control it, that is what Israel has not done yet. And until Israel does, Hamas will still be in power, and Israel will not have achieved either of its three goals: one, to dismantle its military capabilities; two, to dismantle their administrative capabilities; and three, to get the hostages back. So that's the situation in the south.
Just one parenthesis, just to make a comment on what you're saying. Absolutely correct analysis. On this show, from my perspective and my opinionated perspective, Israel should control the Gaza Strip and can deal with the 2 million people there. We can administer medicine. We can do food. Yes, we can control it like as we did before. And I think that's the way forward personally. I don't think anybody else is going to do it for us. Not the UAE, not the Americans, not the international community, and certainly not the PA or the Hamas. And I agree with you that when you say all day long, we're going to do everything, we're not going to let Hamas rule here. You got to make a political solution for people that they can hear and understand. What do you want? Who do you want to rule there? Who do you want to be the sovereign there? My claim is Israel can be the sovereign, but not everybody in Israel agrees to that yet at all.
Yeah, I mean, not everybody agrees. And I think that what Israel has failed to do so far is to bring some other alternative. a regional alternative, Arab forces, some Palestinian alternative, or some international force. None of that exists. And if we want to achieve our military aims, our strategic aims, then that is probably what we need to do. I don't believe that it is in our long-term benefit to be doing it, but to get rid of Hamas, I think that there's no other real way of doing it, because as long as UNRWA exists in Gaza, and as long as Hamas has the monopoly on the distribution of food, all of the international aid that comes in, and as long as they are paying the salaries to local workers in Gaza, they run the Gaza Strip, and we will not have completed our goals. And it's a pretty simple situation. And I think that once the situation up north kind of calms down a bit, and Israeli troops will be relieved from that combat duty and will have more troops available, that will probably be the next thing that the IDF will be tasked with doing. So far, there's still too much fighting in other fronts, and the IDF simply doesn't have the available resources. But
let's watch. Jonathan, let's just watch 48 seconds of Channel 12's report on what Gazan Arabs told reporter Ohad Chemo. It's just 48 seconds, but it really gives us an amazing sense of what Arabs in Gaza are thinking.
والله فرحت لما قتلتوا الصنوار اللي دمر وقتل اطفالنا. والله العظيم زغرتت، والله العظيم زغرتت. الحمد لله ان شاء الله بتمحوهم، ان شاء الله بتمحوهم. ضلكوا وراهم لغايه ما تقتلوهم. سيبنا بيوتنا دمروها عروسهم. يا ربي تلقاهم القصر 15 من اليهود. اليهود احسن. الله ونعم الوكيل. هذه النكبه. الله يكتبهم. الله بيحكم معهم. يا رب يقتلوهم اليهود. يا اليهود احسن منهم. اليهود بعطونا اكل، بعطونا الدنيا، وبيعملوا لنا الدنيا، وبيعطونا الطريق بامنه، وايش يفضح ارضهم اليهود الحماس.
Unbelievable video that Channel 12 brought. What do you think about that?
I think tremendous work by Ohad Chemo. I've shared it myself, and I think it's so important for international journalists, editors, opinion makers, and elected and appointed officials to see this, and of course within the boundaries of one journalistic report, but really to see this and get an understanding of, well, maybe the situation in Gaza isn't what we're being told on CNN, Sky, BBC, and MSNBC. Maybe it's a more complex situation where the Palestinians actually don't like Hamas, and they want to be freed from the tyranny from almost 20 years of Hamas oppression. Maybe Palestinians understand that what Hamas has done is to bring destruction upon them without asking their permission. And maybe the ones that are to be blamed for this entire horrible situation of human suffering is Hamas and not Israel. So many times people around the world, especially in the West, have this very odd way of confusing between cause and effect, and really shifting blame on Israel, when really Israel is only defending itself. Yes, Israel is stronger and more powerful than all of its enemies, and therefore can inflict more damage on enemy territory. But we aren't the ones who started it. We're just defending ourselves against aggression. And the ones that should be paying the price and the ones that should be held accountable are the ones that started it. And in this case, Hamas. And I think what Ohad Chemo brings forward is a very authentic and trustworthy, and I know Ohad personally, and I know how he works. I think it's a very authentic and trustworthy coverage of a glimpse into Palestinian society, the despair and the horrors of the consequences of Hamas's actions. And it's super important for people around the world to see it. So that's Gaza in a nutshell. And if we
so the question I asked you before, and you're still answering it, is what's the report card? What's our credit rating of Israel on the if writ large? If we kind of take the 10,000 foot outlook. Okay, so Gaza, you're saying your point about Gaza was we have it somewhat in hand. We've beaten back Hamas. They still have the hostages, but we have not issued a clear alternative to Hamas rule.
Yes, and while we have defeated Hamas militarily, by and large, and taken away all of their substantial military capabilities, and we've done so and paid in the most important currency that exists, our soldiers' blood and the sacrifices that they have made, our brave soldiers on the field. They have been tremendous, and I think they've overcome significant odds. Many people around the world, including renowned American and British military experts, were advising Israel, don't do it, don't go into Gaza, don't fight. It's going to be so difficult for you, and you won't be able to penetrate their defenses and the tunnels, etc., etc. And they explained to us that it was an exercise in futility, to which we replied, well, we have no other choice. We have to go in, and we do believe that we are capable of defeating Hamas, and we will defeat Hamas. And I think that that is now what the brave men and women under the IDF leadership have done. And now what we need is, the final twist, which will be the political and diplomatic solution to really bring change into Gaza and to usher in hope for the future, hope for Israelis and hope for Gazans. But as long as Hamas and UNRWA are in place, we're not going to see anything really positive happening in Gaza. Now, if we move on to Lebanon, so a lot, if we were to have had this conversation, Ishai, let's say 8 months into the war, 9 or 10 months into the war, I would have said totally different things. But ever since the elimination of Ismail Haniyeh, and then afterwards the beeper attack, the very successful beeper attack that Israel did against the senior leadership and the most important military levels of Hezbollah. Since then, it's been event after event and operation after operation, which has led to an effective strike on Hezbollah's capabilities, their chain of command, their tactical capabilities, their ability to fight and fire rockets, and really to conduct.
And yet today, Israel was. My kids showed me a picture of the rocket threats throughout Israel today. The map was covered with red dots.
Indeed.
Israel was under fire today. The north was practically shut down.
Indeed, and my family, myself, we were in bomb shelters 4 times only today, and we live in central Israel.
You were in bomb shelters today.
Yeah, definitely not a normal occurrence. So I say that, and I'll explain why this is happening. First, and an important point about that is that it's mostly Hezbollah has been reduced to psychological warfare, very much similar to what Hamas was reduced to when it comes to triggering alarms. Yes, there were impacts in Israel, and there were a little bit more than 20 that were wounded in Israel, and also, by the way, Palestinians. By the way, an interesting event is that Palestinians tried to claim that there was an explosion in Tulkarem, which was a result of an incoming rocket or an Israeli interceptor, when in fact it has become apparent, according to Israeli security sources, that this was an accident, and an IED, an improvised explosive device, went off in Tulkarem, leading to 12 Palestinians getting wounded. So much more related to terrorism than incoming rockets. But if we go back to the big level of here, the taking stock of the situation, Hezbollah has been, I think, overwhelmed by Israeli tactical military success against it during the last 3 months. It's not a decisive, overwhelming effect. Hezbollah is a strong and robust, well-founded and well-organized organization.
Can Israeli folks living in the north go back home? Here's Nahariya today. Here's what it looked like. Okay, that's the north of Israel. An apartment building, the top floor got decimated. So my question to you is, can we foresee a time where Israelis from the north are moving back home? If not, then what are we talking about? Then we have not reached the strategic goals of this thing.
Yeah, I think we can. And I think that day is nearer today than it was yesterday, because most, if not all, of Hezbollah's infrastructure in southern Lebanon, close to the border, has been dismantled. But the rockets, and I think we have to be really honest here, even if Israel is able to take away all of Hezbollah's infrastructure in southern Lebanon beyond what we've done now, beyond 5 kilometers or 3 miles, and we go 7 miles in, or perhaps 10 miles in, or even all the way up to the Litani River. At the end of that, even if we do that, and that will come at a heavy military price in casualties and expenses, even then, Hezbollah will still have the ability to fire rockets at northern Israel and probably central Israel. In order for us to be able to live in total security without any rockets being fired at Israel, very drastic measures have to be taken. I don't think that those measures are currently on the table. Speaking of, maneuvering 40, 50, 60 kilometers into Lebanon and decimating everything on the way, maybe that's in the cards for the future. I would actually propose a different, more indirect approach. And this goes to the bigger strategic picture. If we take stock of the situation, I think that most of what can be achieved militarily has already been achieved with regards to Hamas and Hezbollah. But the bottom line is that until we actually make sure that they won't be able to replenish and rebuild their capabilities at the end of the fighting, until that happens, we're just going to see them rebuild themselves and fight again. Now, how can we do so? If we go to the source. The source of Hezbollah isn't Lebanese taxpayers, and the source and the strength of Hamas doesn't come from Palestinian taxpayers, even though Hamas taxes them very effectively and they use international aid as well. The source of all of the weapons, the money, the political guidance, and the extremism comes from the Islamic Republic of Iran. And until we in Israel deal with that horrible, tyrannical, and violent regime in Tehran, about 900 miles away from where we are, then I don't think that we will really know quiet and stability. Right. Maybe Israelis will be able to go back to their homes, but we won't be able to live here in stability and in relative security. So what we need to be doing is shifting the strategy and focusing on what's about 900 miles away from here, because until that is settled, and until they are held accountable for their acts of aggression against Israel, and until they, the Iranian regime, are persuaded by the use of Israeli military capabilities and other capabilities that it's simply not worth it to continue to attack Israel, they will continue to attack Israel. They'll continue to fund all our enemies, and they're very prolific, they're very creative in providing weapons to Palestinian terrorists in Judea and Samaria. They're very prolific in destabilizing Jordan. They're doing it, they've done it in Syria, they've done it in Lebanon, they've done it in Yemen, and I'm sure that they will look for other places to do it as long as we don't stop them. So the bottom line here, if we really take stock of our current situation, is that I think we are in a shift. What should be a strategic shift from military operations along our borders against the weaker links of the Iranian axis of evil, Hamas, which has almost been decimated, and Hezbollah, which has been significantly degraded but not beaten yet. But all of that is tactical details, and it will not matter very much at the end of the war if we don't shift towards the center of gravity of enemy activity, and that is Iran.
Okay, so you've spoken of the front in Gaza, you've spoken of the front in Lebanon, and you've made it clear towards the end that the real bigger front is the head of the octopus, which is the Iranian regime. You didn't go so far as to say that we're going to work towards regime change. Rather, use the kind of language that they'll, learn that it's not worth it. But one could understand that at the end, that regime is oppressive to its people. And it's got a lot of internal protest from within. And regime change would be good for Iran, it would be good for our whole region. But yet there's another front, and that's why I'm so happy that you're on today, Jonathan Conricus, is the front that we fight against forces that are anti-Israel. Could you call them jihadists? Well, not exactly. But these forces include things like the ICC. And the ICC, the International Criminal Court at The Hague, supposedly the world's top war crimes court, issued arrest warrants on Thursday for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his former defense minister, Gallant, accusing them of crimes against humanity. The warrants said there's reason to believe that Netanyahu and Defense Minister Gallant used starvation as a method of warfare and have targeted civilians on purpose while trying to fight Hamas. And so the criminal court issued real arrest warrants. Like in theory, if Prime Minister Netanyahu flies to France, he could be taken into custody. And therefore undermining the legitimacy of our claim that we're fighting a just war, that we're trying to minimize casualties, and also feed the population of Gaza to the tune of 900 million tons of food in the last 13 months. So that is another front altogether. And before you answer that, let's just check out a few videos having to do with this shocking declaration by the ICC, these arrest warrants. Let's take a look at Lindsey Graham from the United States, what he has to say about the ICC.
Any ally, Canada, Britain, Germany, France, if you try to help the ICC, we're going to sanction you.
Well, that means I want every ally, and you saw little Justin in Canada and his position. What should the penalty be?
We should crush your economy because we're next. Why can't...
So there's Lindsey Graham, Senator Graham, talking, very hard against those who support the ICC. And there's more videos on the ICC. Let's just take a look at my friend Yoni Kempinski interviewing Danny Danon, Israel's ambassador to the UN. And let's see what he has to say about this ICC arrest warrants.
Ambassador to the UN, Danny Danon, shalom.
Shalom, Yoni. Thank you for having me again.
The International Criminal Court in The Hague has issued arrest warrants against Netanyahu and Gallant. How do you see this development, and how should Israel respond?
That is a shameful decision of the court. It's a political decision to put the Prime Minister of Israel and the former Minister of Defense on the same list with notorious murderers. That's unacceptable. I think we have to act, and we will act. First, we have to speak with our allies in the United States to move forward with the legislation that will boycott the ICC and whoever is cooperating with the ICC. And I believe it will happen sooner than we expect. But also we have to take actions. We have to take actions against the Palestinian Authority. They are the one who actually initiated the process, and they are conducting diplomatic terrorism against Israel. I am sure the government will decide how to do it, how to handle it, but they will have to pay a price for what they are doing.
Diplomatic terrorism, that's a very interesting term. So that's Danny Danon at the UN. And Jonathan Karikas, just one last video. Here is Senator John Thune, who's going to be the Senate Majority Leader. And here's his short and strong words on the issue of the ICC arrest warrants.
Over 13 months now since Hamas terrorists waged war against Israel, and for the past year plus, Democrats have struggled to support our ally Israel and has literally fractured the Democrat Party. For example, we are expecting tomorrow Senator Sanders to offer a resolution denying lethal aid to Israel. The refusal to have our allies back and the hesitation to call out anti-Semitism in our own country has consequences. It enables bad behavior and bad actors around the world, and it encourages others to abandon Israel in their time of need. Now you have the International Criminal Court, or the ICC, and its prosecutor pursuing warrants against Israeli officials. That is outrageous, and it is unlawful. The ICC rogue actions are a threat to our ally Israel, and left unchecked, it could pose a threat to America in the future. I am calling on Leader Schumer to bring a bill to the floor sanctioning the ICC, which the House has already passed on a bipartisan basis. And if he refuses to act, our Senate Republican majority next year will. We will stand with Israel and make this and other supportive legislation a top priority in the next Congress. So to our allies in Israel and to the Jewish people around the world, my message to you is this: Reinforcements are on the way. Senate Republicans reclaim the majority in 6 weeks, and when we do, we will make clear that the United States Congress stands squarely in Israel's corner, and we will help the Trump-Vance administration defend Israel and promote peace in the region.
Okay, Jonathan Conricus, I know that you have to go to your next interview. God bless you. But whatever time you can give me is good enough for me. This other front, the International Criminal Court, the international opinion, how is Israel fighting that? How are we going to push back on this ICC arrest warrant thing?
Yeah, so that's why I started with saying that, first we covered reality on the ground, but sometimes, sadly, the virtual fake reality is more important than the real reality on the ground. Real reality is that Israel was attacked, as you said so eloquently in the beginning. Israel didn't want this war. Israel didn't start it. And therefore, we shouldn't, of course, be held accountable for what's happening, and definitely not in such a perverse way. But for many people, it doesn't matter, the cause and effect, and it doesn't matter who started. It doesn't matter who really has genocidal intent, which is what our enemies have against us. If the pictures are worse on the Palestinian side, then we must be the ones that are to be blamed. And that's a perverse situation. Israel is fighting on 7 kinetic fronts, active fronts as we speak, and we are fighting 2 additional fronts, international media warfare and lawfare. I would say 9 fronts. The last 2, they're interconnected and they feed off each other, but it is a very, very important battle. It is loaded with anti-Semitism. It is loaded with bias and unfair judgment against Israel. It is an uneven playing field, which I have been in for quite a lot of years. And I would say that it is an almost unwinnable situation because there are so many tremendous powers that are stacked up against Israel. I can only say that I am so very grateful that we have the support of our biggest and most important ally, the United States of America, standing beside Israel, supporting Israel, protecting Israel diplomatically, and providing Israel also with the ability with the arms it needs to defend ourselves. Now, the situation is one where I think, having said that it's almost unwinnable, I'd say the following, and I don't know if you will agree, Yishai, but I think that many of our viewers will. I think that we in Israel, for political reasons, are not allocating the relevant resources, talent, money, and priorities in fighting this war in a way that it is good for Israel. I think that we should be investing much more talent, people, money, other resources, priority, intelligence, and time and creativity in fighting this war, because it is a very important war, which sometimes is even more important than what our brave men and women do on the battlefield. And I think that for far too long, Israel has not invested enough money and resources and priorities in international media, and in lawfare, and in the court of public opinion, global public opinion. And now, unfortunately, we are also suffering from it. And to kind of give you an example of a positive example of exactly what Israel is capable of, and I think you and I share that belief in Israel's amazing capacity to do the impossible, to accomplish the impossible with the hard work, with the belief, with the ingenuity and the creativity of Am Yisrael. For 40, 50 years ago, Israel was a country that was on the verge of running out of water. Today, we are a regional water superpower that deals in water in order to promote our national security interest. That didn't come out of nowhere. It came out of a political decision to prioritize that asset, water, and then came legislation, education, investment, and long-term strategic focus, national focus across the board. Everybody in Israel knew that we have to take care of that asset called water Because if we don't recycle, and if we don't be early adopters of new technologies like desalination and other things, and if we don't educate people not to waste, and if we don't transfer the water effectively, then we won't have it. And today we did all those things successfully, which is an example of how Israel can overcome tremendous and challenging odds. And what we're facing internationally is tremendously challenging odds. But I think we can do it if we set our minds to it. And I hope that the Israeli government now and in the future will prioritize it, because we are suffering. And if there's one front that worries me most, it is not what our brave men and women on the battlefield are facing against Hezbollah or against Hamas. We are defeating them on the battlefield because our fighters are better, they are braver, they're smarter, they're more creative, they're led better, and they have better equipment, and they're better organized. All of that on the military level is pretty clear, especially when you take stock of the situation today. Where we are not doing well enough and where we aren't fighting well enough is in the court of public opinion and in lawfare against us, where we need to be as creative and as brilliant as we can be in so many other things. And I think we have to really shift our strategy and to do much more. There's lots of good people out there. You're one of them who speaks on behalf of Am Yisrael and does a lot of good work in sharing truth and spreading information firsthand from Israel for people who care to see. But the state of Israel has to do so much more, has to communicate better, and has to really focus its assets on it. Otherwise, I think that we will be paying a horrible price, one that I don't think that we can pay. And I think that we should totally shift our strategy. And I think that it is possible. This isn't a doomsday prophecy where it's all everybody hates us and the world is full of anti-Semites, which might be the case, but I think we can still influence the situation.
Jonathan Conricus, you are a great narrative warrior, and Israel's lucky to have you, and we thank you very much for your time. And I think you've given us two conceptual shifts today. One is that the war has to go to Iran, one way or the other, because at the end, that's the head of the snake. That's the thing that is motivating these other proxies. And the other thing is a change in Israeli strategic thinking about what I call the narrative war, both what you call lawfare and court of public opinion. We need to put another layer, another level, totally different strategic kind of level in order to fight this war. But really, you are one of the top people, and you will continue to advise Israeli leadership also in this battle. God bless you, and thank you so much for joining us today.
You too. Thank you, Ishai. Thanks for having me. Shalom.
All right. Jonathan Conricus is really one of the people who is doing great work, and you saw it here on the Ishai Fleischer TV show. Thank you very much. All right, folks. Wow, that was a lot of fun and intense for me out there. I wanted to also thank my producer, Yocheved, for being with us today. And I want to say that if you are watching from anywhere around the globe, please write us right now a little message, a chat, a comment that says where you're from and a blessing from Israel. I want to read all your international, because one of the beautiful things about this technology is that it's global and it's awesome. So, Michael says, shalom from Columbus, shalom. And the screen is going to fill up with folks from all around the world, including Norway and other places. It's awesome. While this is from Germany, Anton says hi. While these blessings from Scotland and other places are coming on the screen, I just want to finish off a thought here that Jonathan talked about. He talked about what I call the narrative war. And the narrative war is extremely important. But you can't fight the narrative war. You can't fight the PR war without good policy. If you don't have a good, clear policy and message discipline, a clarity that everybody can agree on, you can never fight too well. The other side, the haters, they have a very clear message. Israel's bad. Israel's an occupier. Israel hurts civilians. Israel doesn't belong. Israel's illegitimate. When we hem and haw and say, well, maybe a Palestine, and I don't know, and we're trying so hard with the civilians, and we have all this kind of wishy-washy, Woody Allen-ish kind of answers, then we can never win the narrative war. For example, Gaza. When it comes to Gaza, you have to say very clearly, we are going to govern Gaza. We're going to be the sovereigns there. Nobody else can do it. There's no newfangled terrorist like the PA or the PLO. There's no international organization's going to do it. Israel's got to take responsibility. And when Israel starts to speak clearly, and Jonathan mentioned this, he said Israel's not speaking clearly. When Israel speaks clearly and says, we're going to govern this land, it's part of the land of Israel, and there's only one group of people, only one entity that can take control of this place and make it normalized, it's Israel. You got to say it. Say it loud, say it proud, go big and go home. And say it, and the world will be like, that makes sense. They may not like it at first, but they'll understand it. And Arabs will thank you. And the Arab regimes will thank you for taking control of that land, taking responsibility. So in order to have a good message and win in the PR war, you have to have clarity. You can't be wishy-washy about it. Say, well, we're going to fight the Hamas, but hope that somebody else takes it over. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. You got to hold on to the land, and you've got to say, I'm going to be the sovereign here. God gave me this land. History gave me this land, and there's nobody else who could be the sovereign. It's also geographically natural part of the land of Israel. Be strong and be clear. Am I right, John, from Wichita, Kansas? Yes. So that's issue number one. Same thing for Lebanon. If you have to control South Lebanon, okay, we'll control South Lebanon. And if we have to make it part of Israel, then maybe part of Israel. Hopefully we can help that country restore its sovereignty by helping them, helping get rid of the Iranian influence there. The other thing is that we have to be more ruthless against the bad guys. If the food that we're sending into Gaza ends up into the hands of Hamas, you got to stop that. Turn off their electricity. Stop giving them fuel that feeds the tunnel system underneath that keeps our hostages. You got to be brutal with brutal people. You got to finish them off and never have anybody to negotiate with. There's no negotiation with Hamas. There's no deal. There's only one deal. You made the deal. The deal is you started October 7th. And that's the deal. That means that you started and we're going to finish it. And in truth, Israel's at fault 100% for October 7th. We gave away that land. We allowed the jihad to take over that land. We saw them do it with our own eyes, and we didn't stop them. We are at fault for October 7th, and we are at fault for those hostages today. We have to never again make stupid mistakes. Never again meant in the past, never let the bad guys do bad things to you. Never rely on other people. From now on, never again means never again doing stupid things like giving away our land. And we've got to take control of Judea and Samaria. We've got to annex it, assert sovereignty over it, fight the jihadism that's within, have zero tolerance for jihadism. And so many countries around the world will say, good, Israel. We're taking an example from you, Israel. And thank you for speaking in clarity, Israel. If this is your homeland, then hold on to your homeland and show the world what you got to do with your homeland. And same thing for Jerusalem. There's no Eastern Jerusalem that is now jihad run. Jihadism has no place in Eastern Jerusalem or on the Temple Mount. And when we speak with clarity, people will understand it. People will respect it. Give a status to pro-Israel non-jihad Arabs. Give them residency in the land of Israel. But speak with clarity. Tell them what jihadism is illegal, what we will not stand for. Speak in clarity, and people will appreciate that. And don't underestimate the bad guys. Don't underestimate them in Lebanon. Don't underestimate them in Gaza. Don't underestimate them in Judea and Samaria. Don't underestimate them in Iran. Don't underestimate them on American campus. Don't underestimate Al Jazeera in Qatar. Don't underestimate them in the Houthis. Take control of our sea lanes. Destroy the people who are destroying international trade. Be big and go home. Be big, go big, and go home. And speak with clarity and have a drive and a vision. And I call this, hello from a London Jew, Yishai, shalom to you, Lou. I call this the transition between Yaakov, which is what the Jewish people are when we're in the diaspora. We're Jacob. We have a Jacob-like system to maneuver existence in the diaspora. But when we're in Israel, we're no longer Jacob. We're no longer making deals and kind of being clever. We're Israel, Yisrael. We've got to speak with what Yisraelness. What is Yisraelness? Yashar El. Straight to God, straight clarity. And when we speak with that kind of clarity, when we take possession of our small, tiny land, we don't want anybody else's land. We're nationalists, not imperialists. There's only one imperial element in Israel. Do you know what the imperial element in Israel is? The light unto the nations. That's the only thing that we're going to want from the nations, is to send the light of God, which comes from Yerushalayim, from Jerusalem. It's going to light up the world. It's going to infect the world. It's going to go viral, baby. That's the only thing we want from the nations, is to hear the call of the God of Israel. And that comes through holding on to this tiny piece of land, keeping it safe, and not allowing bad guys to try to erase us and replace us. We are done with supersessionism. We're done with what do they call it in Christianity? Replacement theology. We're done with that. We are here to replace the replacement theology. We're here to be the original place. The land of Israel belongs to the Jewish people. God gave it to us. He has helped us win it in wars. We're here to proclaim God's name. We're here to actually proclaim liberty, as Richie Torres says, to all the peoples of the land, because a strong Israel is liberties for all the peoples of this land and probably around the region. And it's time for the Saudis to hear with clarity that we're not going to leave Judea and Samaria to make peace with you. If you want peace with us, i.e. Israeli strength to be the defense for you against jihadism and against Iran, then don't talk about us giving up our land. We're going to rule our land. We're going to rule Jerusalem in the Temple Mount. We're going to have that third temple in Jerusalem. And that is the truth. And the truth, let the truth and the freedom ring throughout the land. Catherine says, awesome show today from Eastern North Carolina, one of the nicest states in the Union. God bless you. But Ali Hussein says, you guys are sick. Put Ali back on. Ali, come on. You guys are sick. No, we're not sick. We're health. And if you're a jihadist, then you're sick. You have not brought anything good to your people, Ali Hussein, if that's your name. You have not brought anything good with your Israel hate. PC writes, Israel's beautiful. I plan to visit next year. And thank you very much for your super chat. We love your super chats. Thank you very much. It's so helpful for us to continue broadcasting to the world. There's other ways that you can help and support us. First thing is, if you love what we do, if you love what we broadcast, then please check out buymeacoffee. If we can hold on to the comments, thanks. Buymeacoffee.com/Yishai is a great way to support our broadcasts. And if you believe what Jonathan Conrica said, which is that Israel's got to double down, if not more, on the narrative war and to fight it, help us in any way that you can to fight the narrative war, because that's what we're doing here. That's what my team and I are doing with the help of God at Yishai Fleisher TV and our other channels. We're trying to fight the narrative war for Israel. And that's what we have been called to: reserve duty, to IDF duty. That's our duty, is to fight the narrative war. So please go to buymeacoffee.com/Yishai. Easy enough. And if you want to see the land of Israel beautified, and if you want that Torah spread to the world, if you want to plant trees in the land of Israel, if you want to see new tractors all over the land of Israel, farming and beautifying, be part of our various projects that can be found at a website whose name I came up with because God put it in my head and I love it so much: fightforisrael.org. Fight for Israel. Just wear the t-shirt. I fight for Israel. We got to make these t-shirts. I fight for Israel. It's so simple. Fight for Israel. I love that, because when you fight for Israel, you pray for Israel. When you fight for Israel, you love for Israel. And of course, I have that new word I came up with, which is beautified. We got to beautify. We got to fight. We got to beautify for the land of Israel. Fightforisrael.org. Easy enough. Finally, I have the great, unbelievable merit to work for the mamas and the papas, the tomb of the patriarchs and matriarchs in the beautiful and ancient city of Hebron. Hebron is the seat of this amazing structure, an amazing tomb, an amazing shrine of Genesis. And learn more about it at hebronfund.org. Visit, check out our pictures, our movies, and learn more about it and connect, come and visit it. And of course, you could support the continued effort to resettle and rebuild ancient Hebron and protect the tomb of the patriarchs and matriarchs. Very finally, you can write me an email, yishai@yishaifleischer.com. I get a lot of emails, and I'm going to try to respond. But if it's really important and burning in your heart, please go to yishaifleischer.com. Also, we heard earlier today from JewishConversionAcademy.com. Check out their website. And, of course, remember one of our many slogans, which is go big and go home. And one of the best ways to go big and go home is to go back to Torah. Study the book of Genesis. Teach it to your children and grandchildren. Make it part of your life. It'll change you. The words of it will come into your consciousness and fill your bloodstream with holiness. Come back to Hashem. This world can uncover a great sea of faith in God in an Abrahamic way. Ask God to take you in the path of Abraham. Ask him to bring you to the land of Israel. When I say ask him, I mean ask him. Say, God, bring me one day to the land of Israel. Bring me to Jerusalem, to Yerushalayim. Bring me to Hebron to see the tomb of the patriarchs and matriarchs. Ask him, capital H, and he will hear your prayers, because God loves it when you love his people and you love his land and you love his Bible and you want to get close to him. Daniel says, Shalom from Eritrea. May the Prince of Peace protect the land of Israel. I'm sure you're referring to King David and the Abrahamic path. And that's, of course, the direction that we have to go to find truth. And may Hashem guide us in truth. So that's it. I am sending you lots of love and lots of blessings from the land of blessings. Remember, today we lost a rabbi, Tzvi Kogan, murdered by Iranian agents in the UAE. And so therefore, we all have to take it upon ourselves to light a candle and to spread more light of Judaism, of Torah, of the Abrahamic way, of the light of Israel. We have to double down every single day, make it stronger, make that light even stronger. So in the memory of Tzvi Kogan, we got to be strong. Rebecca says, it works. I asked him and I'm here, from Spain to Yerushalayim. Amen. You see, you just have to ask Hashem. He's real. He's listening. And here's another nice slogan that we have, which is let my people grow. We're going to continue to grow in this land. We'll continue to be strong in this land. That's it. Blessings from the land of blessings. Lots of love. Thank you so much for being with me. Please do a little thing for yourself. Subscribe, hit that little bell, be part of our network. We're just doing our best to broadcast the land of Israel and the light of Israel, the light of Jerusalem. So you can be part of that very easily. We also have our weekly MP3 podcast, which is there. It's free. It's easy to connect to, and it helps you prepare for the Sabbath and helps turn your heart towards Yerushalayim. God bless you, folks, wherever you are. Thanks again to my team, Yo, and David, and Malka, and the rest of the team that helps us get the light out to the world. God bless you, folks, wherever you are. Lots of love and lots of blessings, and shalom.